Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, I was joined by Jay Lawrence as AI decides our episode. Jay tells me which NFL player is most likely to get lost on a yacht.
And the New York media went absolutely mental.
I fail miserably at a dramatic reading challenge.
Okay.
And listeners give us some NFL debates in our phone-in section. And we have our first caller coming in. Hope you guys enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis. And today's episode, we are doing an AI-themed episode. Last off-season, me and Javan gave you our episode where we let AI choose the theme and the content of the episode. We're doing it again. We've got a different guest on for the episode, but we're going to bring it out in a minute. But before we do that, let's go back to On This Day. Now, on this day in 1969, Joe Namath resigned from the NFL after Pete Rozelle, commissioner at the time, said he must sell his stake in a bar, and the likes of DeAndre Hopkins, Roger Saffold, Kenny Pickett, and Hall of Famer Bobby Mitchell were all born. Now, today's guest, he's a returning guest. He's probably got his hat-trick ball by now. He's well known. He's the voice of Talk Sport, Absolute Radio, and the Jaguars UK podcast. With me today is, of course, Jay Lawrence. Jay, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Thank you so much for inviting me back, having me back on.
Well, it's good to have you back on, especially after last time you did, unfortunately, halfway through for a post-London Games illness.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but I didn't feel well, so I just had to quit halfway through. But then you did have somebody else on as well at the same time, so I didn't feel too guilty. You had Dan on, so. But I want to just be clear as well that I reminded you of that about 3 minutes ago, and you'd actually forgotten that it ever happened, so I just shouldn't have said anything, should I? But never mind.
Well, yeah, we are going to bring you guys today, as I said earlier, bringing you an AI-themed episode. So, likes of such as where are they now? So we're going to each introduce players that maybe have been forgotten about and what they're up to these days, as well as other categories. And later on in the episode, we are going to bring you potentially a phone-in with some guests and some listeners of the show are going to come in and give us some NFL debates to talk about. So we'll start off with the first category. Now, we did use ChatGPT. No, we used the Bing AI device, as we did last year. So we've been given some questions here, and we're hoping we can bring you some good content. First of all, is a Where Are They Now segment. This is a segment where it's asked us to catch up with a retired NFL player or a fan favourite from yesteryear. Share what they're up to, charity work, weird business ventures, or hilarious media appearances. Now, Jay, I'll let you go first. Which player are you going to give me Where Are They Now?
Let's go with Peanut Tillman, the famous Bears player, of course. He had a great career, played for the Panthers as well, got to a couple of Super Bowls. After he retired, this is crazy, right? He was training with federal agents at the FBI Training Academy in Quantico, Virginia. He qualified a day before his 37th birthday. I actually think he's in the UK at the moment as well. I think he was in London yesterday, I believe, on Tuesday. So presumably not in any official FBI business. But I think that's one that always strikes me as a little bit, you get a lot of players that go into media, maybe coaching. How many have gone into FBI, Andy?
Can't think of any.
No, exactly. You got
sport, not just that.
You can go next then. Who have you got?
So I've gone for a bit more of a modern edition. Josh Rosen, who not only is he retired, I found him on LinkedIn.
No.
So LinkedIn, first of all, I think what's crazy is the fact that he's got on his experience quarterback for the NFL. You got teacher at this school, or you've got he's just got quarterback NFL 4 years, X amount of months. that was funny in itself. But turns out he is now an MBA candidate at the Wharton School, which is a business school in the University of Pennsylvania.
So I'm just looking now. It literally says experience quarterback NFL. That is so good.
Yeah, and I mean, this is as well as this. There's actually he's got a link. This is probably how he's got in, but he's got a link. His He's maternal great-great-great-grandson of Joseph Wharton, who's the co-founder of Bethlehem Steel and founder of the Wharton School. So it's
Oh my
a
goodness.
bit of an asterisk there. He's got in probably through his family ties, but I just find that crazy on his Instagram, his LinkedIn profile. He's got himself in like the business headshot. He's not got himself, I don't know, in a Cardinals jersey or I don't know, a Dolphins training camp. He's just got himself, all suited up as if he's never played NFL in his life.
Have you sent him a message? Have you found him? Friended him?
I requested a connection, but he has yet to respond.
No reply. No reply. No reply.
He's probably seen them, NFL writer, or probably saying, "Oh, this guy's going to grill me. If I accept his content, he's going to grill me." And he's probably already grilled me in some article in the past. He's probably anything NFL related.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I didn't even think about looking at people on LinkedIn, to be fair. I've got a couple more, but I don't know if one's good enough, so I'm going to go with another one. Myron Roll. I'm going to be honest. I don't know Myron Roll. He was drafted by the Tennessee Titans back in 2010. It's a little bit like Peanut Tillman actually in this respect, because he played in the NFL. In fact, he postponed playing in the NFL for a year to study at Oxford, which I think is amazing. So he had an NFL career with the Titans, with the Steelers. He left in 2013, so that's 3 years, which I think is above average, but obviously not like a standout career in the NFL. And then he matched to a neurosurgery residency at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. So I've gone with FBI and Harvard. In fact, you've gone with business school so far with Josh Rosen. That's impressive, though. That's impressive.
Yeah, fair play. I mean, if I'm honest, that's all I have is Josh Rosen, but I've not even heard of this second guy. To be fair,
Yeah.
One final point before we go on to the next sort of category is go back to LinkedIn. People you wouldn't think you'd see on LinkedIn. And I actually have a connection with this guy. Don't know whether you've seen Come Down With Me, that infamous scene where the guy goes, "You won, Jane, take your money." I found him on LinkedIn and I've got a connection with him on LinkedIn. So
oh my goodness.
If you are a big fan of Come Down With Me, anyone watching this podcast, you can find the guy on LinkedIn and actually get a connection with him. Which I
have you sent him a message? You should send him a message. Send him a message. Be like, "Do you want to come on my NFL podcast?"
I reckon he strikes me as an Arizona Cardinals fan, in my opinion, or maybe.
Oh, you reckon?
Maybe.
No,
by the outburst, maybe an Eagles fan. Judging by the outburst.
That's a good shout. That is a good shout. I was going to say a Patriots fan because there was a lot of it sounds like he had a lot of entitlement. But I think Eagles is a good one.
Right. Next up, we have a category they've given us online: NFL players in alternate careers. So this is basically if players weren't in the NFL, what jobs would they have? Now, I've gone for a guy, which may be an obvious one. Gardner Minshew is a fan favorite, a guy that everyone loves. Everyone loves Gardner Minshew. Anyone who went to that London game in 2019 would have seen the amount of people dressed in Gardner Minshew jerseys, wearing mustaches and wigs and all that. So I've gone for either a lumberjack or a truck driver. If anyone's seen that picture of him in a mullet by a car, I think he's got like some sort of check shirt on, but I can just see him just driving trucks for a living. Driving these American road trips. These American truck drivers go for like days on end, and I can just see him there chopping wood on the side as a side hobby and just doing that. And that's kind of thing where he'd be something physical. I can see him being something a bit daredevil-y, a bit out there. I can't see him being in an office. I can't see him working in retail. I can see him doing something outdoorsy. A bit of danger involved, and that's where I see Gardner Minshew. I
can see him. I think you're right. A truck driver, like the lumber with the big piles of like logs. That sort of truck. I like when you said like a daredevil. I think that's a good one. Motorbike daredevil. With just doesn't wear any leather. He's just got the helmet on, and he's just going like over like 10 cars, like on the motorbike. And his catchphrase is "You got Minshewed." No, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. We can think of something better.
I quite like that. Or
you got or who's the gardener? I'm the gardener. No, that doesn't work either.
It could be a gardener.
It could be a gardener. And then people are so confused because they ask for his first name and he says Gardner. And he's like, "You are a gardener?" No, my first name's Gardner. And oh, that's strange. It's a little bit like how it used to be with like your last name is your profession, but his first name is his profession. What's a Davies? Andy Davies. What does that mean?
I'll say first of all, it is Davis, but I'll get by
Davies.
that.
My bad.
I don't know, to be fair. I think it's. I have no idea. I need to look up my history more. But it's such a common name. You think I would know it. To being such a common surname in Wales, you'd think. And I have no idea what a Lawrence is. I mean, is that
Lawrence? My family's last name was a different last name, and then I think in like the 1800s they changed their name to Lawrence. This is a good one actually. I'll say it quickly. They changed their name to Lawrence, I believe, because they were Jewish, I believe, and they wanted to change their last name. But the reason that it's funny is because the guy who changed his name, his first name was Lawrence, and he changed his last name to Lawrence, but he didn't change his first name, so he became Lawrence, and then his son Lawrence, and then his son Lawrence.
Oh my
There were 3 or 4 generations of Lawrences, which I just think it's just too good. It's too good. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh, okay, here we go. I've got a good one. I think this is good. Okay, so Kalen Saunders, the New Orleans Saints defensive tackle. Okay, I know what he would do if he wasn't an NFL player because he's got a brother that does it. So Kalen Saunders' brother is Cameron Saunders, who is a professional dancer, choreographer, and creative director. He is most well known for being one of, if not the main dancer on Taylor Swift's Eras tour, and plays a role, like a little short speaking role every night on tour. So, and that's Kalen Saunders' brother, Cameron Saunders. So if Kalen Saunders, well, if he wasn't an NFL player, he'd keep physical. He'd just join his brother. It'd be a dancer. He'd have just been on every single, date on potentially the biggest tour of all time. So there we go. I think that could have happened.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see it. I mean, family, genes, are a thing, and it's no coincidence that the 3 Manning brothers that played, or 3 members of the Manning family that have played in the NFL. There could be a 4th one in a couple of years' time, and yeah, maybe that is dancing is in his blood. Maybe
dancing's in his blood. Taylor Swift is in his blood. Exactly.
Right. So the next section is one they've asked the host to do a dramatic reading of a player's off-the-field hobby. So quite simple. This one is a bit risky one. I don't know how it's going to be received. This is just dramatic reading of what I'm about to say, but I'm hopeful it can bring some humour to this episode.
Okay.
All right. This is one very recent news it's to do with. There was once a young man who was born in Gaithersburg, Maryland, who grew up to be an NFL wide receiver. After 5 seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, he made the move to the Buffalo Bills before 1 season with the Houston Texans. He then joined the New England Patriots this offseason under new head coach Mike Vrabel. And just recently, he was seen on a boat next to 3 women in bikinis who would then proceed to call him Daddy. Oh my God. That's horrible. I'm never saying that ever again. Then, out of nowhere, he pulls out a plastic bag. In it, this plastic bag is an unknown substance. What that substance is, nobody will know. Oh God, that's one I'm never gonna ever say.
I think you should have tried to do it like the old football, the old movie trailer voice. There once was a man, like something like something like that. That's what you should have gone with. Well done.
Yeah, hopefully it was okay. Hopefully I did as dramatic it could be.
That is, well, it was dramatic. That's for sure. Yeah, it was definitely dramatic. Was it good dramatic? I don't know, Andy, but it was dramatic nonetheless.
Well, that is for the audience to find out what you think of my dramatic reading. Now, the next section, before we go on to our final few, is They called it a rapid fire game, 2 truths and a lie. And a lie, I should say. The host gives 3 statements about off-season events. One is fake, and the other 2 are true, and the guest has to guess what it is. So I'm going to give you 3 stories, and you have to tell me which one is true for the off-season. So which one is false for the off-season. So the first situation is that Aaron Rodgers said that the Packers don't give an SH1T about the Bears. Number 2, Josh Allen and Sam Darnold continued their friendship playing golf together, and Allen was caught giving Darnold a wet willy. And finally, in a recent interview with CBS's Kate Scott, she mistakenly talked to Tom Brady about owning Wrexham when in fact he owns Birmingham City. Jay, hazard me a guess. Which one do you think is the lie?
I am going to say that the lie is... I actually don't know. I'm going to say the Kate Scott one's the lie.
That's your final answer?
Yeah.
Jay Lawrence, you are incorrect. That is in fact true. That was on their pre-Champions League final coverage. I think it was David Beckham, Tom Brady, and there was a third person, I forget who it is, someone else in the sports sphere. And yeah, she did actually say that, she thought he owned Wrexham. Might have been a slip of the tongue more than actually thinking he did that.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, I just thought, I was thinking, I probably should have. I assumed that was the untruth, the wet willy.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, as you were saying it, I was like, I haven't heard this, but I also think I would have known about the Kate Scott thing, but obviously not. Obviously not. Okay.
One thing I will say, it actually did happen, but in 2018. So this story actually happened with Alan Sam Donald, but it's from the 2018 off season when they just got drafted by the Jets and the Bills. So bit of a what's the word? Bit of an Uno card played there, but yeah, no, that was played all the way back in 2018, where the Rodgers one is true. That did happen in a recent talk. He got asked about whether he'd play for the Bears. He did allude to the fact that he's playing, there's one team playing Chicago on the road this season, alluding to potentially joining the Steelers, who do play them, I believe, in week 12. They play the Steelers away from home. And of course, we could see him in Dublin. You never know if we get to that point.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Now, next up, we've gone for the next category they've given us is off-season superlatives. Hand out goofy awards, most likely to get lost on a yacht, or the best beard of the off-season. Now, Jay, I've given you the yacht one, and I've gone for the best beard. So, Jay, tell me, who are you giving the award to for the most likely NFL player to get lost on a yacht?
I am going to go with the whole New York Giants team from like 2016, something like that. Because do you remember? I think it was like 2016. Do you remember when I think they got to the playoffs, but then they had to miss a week. Maybe they missed a week, or maybe they didn't get. Maybe that was it. They didn't. No, they were in the playoffs. And on the week off, they all went to a yacht, and then they all had all of these publicity shots basically taken of them having a really good time at the yacht. And then New York media went absolutely mental, and they absolutely hated the fact that they were having like a really nice time having a break when they should be preparing for the playoffs. So I'm going to say the whole of the New York Giants team from I think it was 2016. I think it was 2016. Odell Beckham Jr. was there anyway.
Yeah, I do remember that picture. It's seen as a bit of a cursed picture. And I think it might have been ourselves, the Dolphins. There was a team that was on the yacht recently when they were on a good run, and everyone was alluding to that that infamous Giants picture from 2016. That is can't think who it was. I think it might have been the Dolphins. It was some team that actually did end up having a bad end of the season, and probably is, as knowing our recent history, probably is.
It probably is the Dolphins.
Probably is. So I had the honour of giving the best beard this offseason. I've gone for a guy who did improve towards the end of last season, and his facial hair has also improved this offseason. I've gone for Carolina Panthers quarterback Bryce Young. He was pictured recently. Pictured recently in a bit like Daniel Jones last year. Pictured recently in his Panthers gear with a beard, and I must say they're saying that he's gone from looking 23 to 33 overnight. He does look so much more older just from this beard, and it's amazing what he can do. But I think for a lot of time, I felt he was a guy that looked lost and looked like a kid. Sort of almost like he wanted competition to be in the NFL sometimes with some games he had in his career. But yeah, he seems to have got better with the last few games last season. Obviously, got new weapons now, and yeah, he seems to be a lot more of a more polished NFL quarterback.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think everybody's behind him, wants him to do well, and it's a good thing that there was some improvement towards the tail end of last season. Well, more than just the tail end of last season, but from a beard perspective, oh, it looks really good. Just look at, yeah. I mean, he pulls that off. I think I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of facial hair that is like a go. I'm not a fan of goatees particularly. I'm not a fan of, I don't even know what you'd call it. Is it like when the hair goes down the side of it? Is
Oh
that a
my
goatee?
god, yeah.
You know, it's like
handlebars.
Yeah, like handlebars. The worst bit, and what's his name? The Liverpool player had it for a bit. What's his name? I can't. His name's just completely gone from my head. Right back.
Handlebars.
No, he didn't have a hand. What's the right? Who's the right back for Liverpool?
Trent.
No. The
Bradley.
Yes, okay. Connor Bradley, he had like a bit of a tiny little tuft, right?
Oh,
Just
yeah.
here. Can't do with it. He grew it out and it looks fine. It looks good now. But when you've got a nice, like, just, healthy amount of hair as a beard, I think it looks good. So well done to Bryce. You won't be getting lost on a yacht. Or maybe you will be, because people want to see you on a yacht now because you've got a nice, handsome beard.
Right, so our penultimate category is another one that AI has given us, where it's the first of two where we're given the chance for the listeners to get involved. Now, the first one was Fan Frenzy, Wild Theories and Mailbag. Fans to share their craziest rumours or conspiracy theories. But we only had one person come in. A lot more came in asking to be involved in the phone-in. Only one person came in with a question for the debate. And this one is not really a conspiracy theory, but it may be one side. It comes from Oliver Drew, and he said to us, under 16 and under 19 contact is very underappreciated. It's the first chance people in the UK get a chance to truly understand the game. I would like to point out how it doesn't get much media attention whatsoever. It's not broadcasted. I feel like this is stopping people from getting into the sport at a young age and throwing them at the game when eligible for adult contact. I feel like both under 16 and under 19 should have their own social media platforms, as well as have games possibly broadcasted and shown live. Now, I had the pleasure recently of going to a BAFA game, South Wales Warriors against Bristol Pash, and yeah, it was a good experience, and I think I'll be going again to a game later on in the season. But I think this question from Oliver just brings in more about sort of how we can grow the game at a grassroots level, because let's face it, it's not a sport that is most popular. It's never going to be as popular as football or rugby and cricket and tennis and maybe even golf. And the same thing, our football is never going to be bigger than the main four in America. I don't think you can do that. But well, obviously, because the college, kids at that age in the US have so much more attention. There's games broadcast on TV at high school level, and obviously college and NFL level, but doesn't seem to be for any sport in the UK really much coverage of kids playing, unless they're sort of a young kid breaking through in the Premier League, or maybe it's the under whatever age it is tournaments in golf or tennis. Yeah, it doesn't really seem to get much. And do you think, Jay, potentially that showing it on TV would potentially increase grassroots involvement in the UK?
Showing BAFA or showing, or youth ages? What are you referring to?
I think Oliver is referring to under 16 and 19, which is probably still, affiliated with BAFA teams, but just their youth level.
No, I mean, I personally don't think that that's a realistic proposition. Okay, let's look at it from, as you said yourself there, Andy. You can't watch, or you might be able to watch, but you'd have to pay for it and whatever to watch the youth teams for the biggest professional soccer teams in the world. You want to go watch Liverpool under whatever, well, you might be able to, but do you know how many people are also watching that? Not many people. Not many people are watching that. In the US, you have high school football, of course. Now, that is sometimes broadcast, and it is sometimes, and that's only to the local area as well. I don't think it's realistic to think that there's going to be anything broadcast. Now, does that mean that you can't put it online? Does that mean that you shouldn't get a camera and just put it on and, have the tape? Well, that's probably useful. Teams maybe are doing that already. But I don't think that it would necessarily help in engagement, particularly at a younger age. Do I think that, broadcasting of BAFA games and the like might help? Sure, but at the same time, I think that is also unfortunately unrealistic at the moment from probably a financial point of view and where we're at totally when it comes to interest in the sport. If we're looking at engagement, NFL aside, I think flag football is the big thing, really. I think flag football, granted, it's not going to be broadcast, as you say, but when it comes to youth engagement, when it comes to people being able to play it from a very young age and being able to see a progression in their interest in the sport. I went to a Jag Tag event a few weeks ago at Saracens, the rugby team's stadium. And it's those kids are unreal. They're like very young and can throw a ball way better than I can, like way better. They might be like, some of them will be like 10 years old. Some of them are considering moving to the US to play, right? So my point really is that is something that I think could be a real long-term, it's a long-term thing, but it could be a real bonus when it comes to American football because you are playing at a young age on the curriculum, sometimes. I'm not sure if it won't be everywhere around the country, but if it was everywhere around the country, you've got kids playing it, then you've got kids playing it outside of school. And then suddenly you've got, a fraction of those will want to play full contact at, under 16 or under 19 level there. And then so on and so forth. And you keep going, that's the long game. And I apologize for ranting, Andy. That's the long game. But I'm not sure that broadcasting youth games at the moment for the specific purpose of getting more people into it, I'm not sure if that's the way forward. But that's not to say that you shouldn't try and get it on YouTube. That's not to try and say that you shouldn't use it for practice or for tape. I'm just not sure it would achieve that goal.
I think I have to agree with you. I mean, I think probably the best way of getting people into the NFL or American football generally is probably just showing the NFL or showing college football maybe, or even I think we'll see probably a lasting effect, as you said before, about flag football with the Olympics coming up. So yeah, I kind of do have to agree with you there, if I'm honest.
Yeah. And it's a tough thing, and it's a tough thing because I think that, there are ways to get people involved. None of it is easy. None of it's a light switch. It's just seeing which of the, it's like seeing what sticks, basically. And you've got to just try your hardest and just hope that people are interested. At the end of the day, you just got to see whether people like it. And if they do like it, great.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So our final segment is what they've given us online is to get fans involved in the show. So we're going to do now a phone-in section. We've got about 3 or 4 waiting in the wings to ask us to give some debates and some talking points. And we have our first caller calling in live now is Harrison. Harrison, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hello.
Hey, Harrison.
How are you guys?
We're good. Yeah, we're good. Good to have you on. You are our first guest on the phone-in. First of all, tell us your NFL team. Which team you support?
So I've been a Jags fan for about 3, maybe 4 years now.
Fair enough.
Do you listen to Teal Talk, the official podcast of the UK and Ireland, Harrison? If not,
I do every now and again.
There we go. I'll take that.
So Harrison, what is your debate for us today?
Well, I think personally, I believe that the tush push should have been banned.
Interesting.
Why, Harrison?
Well, not only do I think it kind of takes the point out of the game. I mean, like what happened against the Commanders, the linebacker Frankie Louvu just thought, "Oh, I can try and stop this," and then gave up a bunch of penalties, and eventually the refs had to step in. It kind of slows the game down. I mean, I know the Jags stopped the tush push when they played the Eagles, but when you get to that 4th and 1 close to the goal line, you just think, oh, they're going to come out in a tush push formation. And yes, of course, they ran fakes in the past, but I don't think that's what the fans want. It's a great play, don't get me wrong. I just don't think the fans should enjoy it. I don't enjoy it. I know a lot of people don't enjoy it. I don't really think it's a great play.
I can do a little bit of a rant about this, so I'll try and be quick. But Andy, if you've got, do you want to answer it first before I start ranting?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think it should not have been banned. I feel personally that whilst it is annoying, I think when you play against them, it is annoying. I don't think actually my team's played against them in the tush push era yet. I think when I saw them play last time, don't think they were doing it as much back then. But either way, I just feel like if it was, other teams have tried it and it's not worked, and I feel like the Eagles are just good at doing it. I think it's no different to a team, having the best sort of run game. I think it's the same sort of thing. If you want to stop the tush push, get better at it yourself and learn how to defend it. And I think that is, whilst it's annoying, I still think that teams can win games despite the tush push. So I think for me personally, whilst I can see absolutely why teams would want to get it banned, but I do think there's an element of they've just won a Super Bowl. Don't know whether it'd be as much of a thing if they'd lost to the Chiefs, or maybe they lost to Washington in the round before. I just feel like and I think statistically actually, in terms of safety, it's actually one of the least dangerous plays there has been. I think there's been a lot more stuff in the NFL that has caused a lot more danger to players than the tush push. If you look at the studies behind it. So for me, I feel like until it gets to a point where players are actually properly in danger from it, I think then you ban it. But I think right now, whilst I can't think of many injuries that have happened even in games I've watched from the tush push. So for me, until teams figured out how to stop it, or things like this happen and players do get injured severely from it, I think until that happens, I think teams just got to learn, sadly, how to deal with it.
I agree with both of you in a weird way, because I completely agree with Harrison. I don't enjoy watching the play. It is boring. When it's at 4th and 1, no matter where they are on the field, you just know what's going to happen. 4th and 2, or whatever, or even 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1. They do it a lot. It is boring to watch. The NFL is worse for the play. Okay, I want to be clear when I say that. The visual element, the entertainment factor, as we just mentioned before, Andy, you want to try and get people into the sport, around globally, the NFL does. And that play does not help things because it's not a fun play to watch and it seems inevitable. However, I just can't see how you can ban it, because you're essentially saying, we don't like it. We don't want it. We don't like it because you're good at it, but it's a boring play and we don't like it. That's not a good enough reason for me. Now, if there was a plethora of information that came out and said, oh, there's health issues, as Andy said, or if there's problems that's being occurred because of the play, then you'll have a reason to do it. I just don't see how you can justify getting rid of a play because one team is good at it. I just don't see how you can. That said, it nearly did get banned this time around. And if it's another year of the Eagles doing well off of it, and not many, you mentioned the Jags there, Harrison. The Jags did do very well against it last season, stopping nearly every attempt in that particular game. But they're the exception, I can easily see it getting banned in 12 months' time if we have more of the same, because it did nearly get banned. But I just find that, I don't love the idea of banning something just because one team's good at it. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I don't love the reasoning.
Harrison, your take on both our opinions.
I agree with both of you. The tush push, I think the only injury that came from the tush push was Chris Jones in the Super Bowl. And that's because he tried to line up sideways to the play, which you can't blame the tush push. You blame the tackle for that. But once again, I agree. If a team's good at something, you can't really take it away from them. It's just, to me and to many people, it's kind of a boring play. And that's the only reason why I'm for it being banned. I'm not against making the sport fairer. It's clearly unfair if one team gets good at something and you just say, oh, no, you can't do that anymore. It's just, I just dislike it because of how repetitive it is.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. No, I think we're on the same page. Which is, I can't quite see how we could justify getting rid of it. However, I really don't like it, and it's true. I really don't like it, and I just think it's boring. And the novelty was all right. You probably remember a few years ago, Harrison, because what did you say? You're a Jags fan for 4 years or something. Like, have you been into the NFL for that long? About 4 years.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, so fine. Like 3 years ago, it was sort of like, or 4 years ago. Oh, it was a bit of a novelty. It was kind of because it had different names as well. It wasn't the tush push back then. It was the brotherly shove at one point. If you remember that, Andy, as well. Like, but now it's just boring, and I don't want a Super Bowl winning team to win off of being boring. They can, good for them, but I don't want them to.
Well, thank you, Harrison, for your call, and we'll get on to our next guest.
Cheers, Harrison. Teal Talk, the official podcast in the UK and Ireland. Jacksonville Jaguars.
Thank you, guys.
No problem, Harrison. Right, we have our next caller ready in the wings. Joining us today is Daryl Carter. Daryl, welcome to the show.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Daryl.
Can you hear us?
Mate. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
So, Daryl, first of all, tell us your team and also what is your debate for us today?
So, team's New York Giants. I've had a bad time recently, but I've been Giants fan since 1988 when I first got into the NFL. So, I've been a long time NFL fan, even way before we even had access to. Well, actually, access was like a highlight show once a week in those days, and but I've been somehow managed to get all the information and followed the Giants ever since.
But you've had some good moments, haven't you? And not bad moments now, but you've had some good moments, and that's a lot more than Andy's had.
Oh, I mean, you've seen your team have, Daryl, you've seen what, 3 Super Bowls in your lifetime?
Yeah. I've watched them win 3 Super Bowls. Yeah.
You've seen Daniel Jones win a playoff game. And I've been a fan 14 years. I've seen 3 playoff games, and that's it. In my whole 14 years, just 3 playoff games.
3 losses.
And also, even adding to, and going back to my story here, but I've been to 8 games in person with the Dolphins. I'm 0-8. So I feel like my whole time has been a pile of misery.
That's really funny.
Yeah, there's always hope.
It's the hope that kills you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Every year they break my heart. It's the last decade. You get your hopes up. You have a good draft. You think this is the year. This is going to happen, and then there you go. Breaks your heart every time.
What is your debate for us today?
I would like to know what is the biggest, because there's a lot of talk about the NFL Europe and division franchise in London and Europe, and now there's talk of a division. Although I've seen the game grow absolutely, since I first started watching it, I've seen it grow in this country like a million times fold. It's massive compared to when I first started watching it, but it still hasn't reached that next level where it's still spoken about on the the normal talk media over here, and where it's becoming a regular broadcast, but it still feels kind of niche. What is stopping the NFL becoming a game that not the diehards, but the casual fans will keep interested all season long, all off season? There's not an off season for us. But the casual fan would be, and they'll only go to the games. What's stopping it getting to that next level in Europe? I've got a couple of reasons why, but I'd like to know your thoughts.
If I'm honest, we actually had a debate about this before with our email question from Ollie Drew about growing the game, and I said then that I don't think, no matter what the NFL does, it's never going to be as big as football. It's never going to top rugby. Never going to be as big as cricket or even F1 and golf. And I just feel like I don't know what NFL can do. I think it's at a good level. I think of popularity, it's got a good core fan base. It's at a good level. But I think if you want the fan base to increase and bring the casuals in, I think one thing I think they're starting to do right now is great, having these sort of marketing rights for countries. I've seen recently in France, the New Orleans Saints going over there to the PSG stadium. I think having certain teams designated to certain countries is great. I think especially if you have one day where you have what they're planning on doing and having one day 16 international games in a season. I think that we've got games. You get games in France and Spain and Germany. I think if you have Pacific teams that are for certain countries, I think one day we'll get to a point where, say, in 10 years' time, a new NFL fan who was born like 5 years ago, they become 20, or they start watching it as a kid. If they got a team that plays, every year in a certain country, and say if you're British, right, and you got 3 teams that play in UK every year, there's a good chance you're gonna choose that team. I know not everyone does that these days with the Jags. They play people who choose other teams. But I feel like the NFL is doing a lot. I think they'll do. Obviously, the games are increasing. I think they could even. There's talk of even one day doing a division. I don't think that will happen in the next 10 years. But I think the NFL is in a good place. I don't know how it's ever going to crack being the top sport in the UK. I think they got enough media coverage. I think maybe more terrestrial TV stuff, but then they stopped doing the ITV show with Jason Bell and OC. I think with things like social media, that can obviously increase it. But I think the NFL is doing all it can. I just don't think personally it will ever be as big as those main sports we have in the UK. Like I was saying before as well, like I don't think we'll ever see football and rugby crack the top 4 sports and golf in America. I think, these sports have been part of the culture of country per se for the past 100 years. Football's been going around since the 1800s. Rugby, not too dissimilar length of time. Cricket, golf have been going around for years, and I think it's very hard for a sport, whatever country is trying to break through, to ever top those countries, because there's a lot more of a built-in fan base. There's generations of families that have followed a certain sport, whatever sport you like. I just think as much as they can try, I think it can definitely get into that top 5, maybe top 6 if they're lucky. Sphere. I think it could potentially one day could go. It could go above golf to watching golf, not playing golf, but certainly watching golf. It could peak that. I think that's a scene they've got, but I don't think it will ever get to a point where it's the most talked about sport in the UK.
Did you think? I mean, history has shown that sports can eventually crack. I mean, football cracked in the 50s, isn't it? The baseball in actual America. So there are times that they can sort of crack those markets and get to the next level. Do you think they've got to, I mean, on a marketing point of view and an awareness point of view, they've done pretty much everything they can and they're doing absolutely brilliantly with it. But what about the actual product on the field? Because when I'm trying to not convert friends, or when I'm trying to introduce friends to the game, the biggest stumbling blocks, the 2 biggest stumbling blocks I find is the actual on the product is, one, when you're watching it, too many TV timeouts. It is so infuriating. And I know the game. I'm used to it. I've accepted it. It's not a problem to me. But when you're trying to bring in the casual fans to watch it and enjoy it, the amount of TV timeouts is ridiculous. And also the amount of stoppages for flags where they're throwing, and again, needless flags where they stop the game and then they'll say, oh, no, that's been called back. They say, why is it being called back? Oh, somebody was down 2 yards downfield when he shouldn't have been. He had nothing to do with the play. He was on the right-hand side of the play. The pass is down to the left, and they're throwing the flag because the lineman, when they're doing a run-option play, like 2 yards, there's a lot of needless stoppages with flags, and it just interrupts the flow of the game, and it just the product falls down. It's hard to get people really sort of enjoying it, because you watch a game in 40 on the or with no ads. It's such a beautiful flowing game when you don't have all those constant stoppages. Again, I'm used to it, but bringing new people in, I find it hard and trying to convince them to enjoy.
I think you've touched on 2 points there, Daryl, that I think are both valid points, but they're also 2 points that I think are quite different, and will be viewed as differently going forward as well. So you're saying timeouts, or even just like the length of a game in between plays, and all of that. I think that is something that the NFL is very aware of. They want the game to be shorter, quite rightly, because you're completely right. That's the exact same issue that I've had, or thoughts that I've had when introducing people to the sport. Again, we're used to it. We're used to waiting that 30 seconds, because we know that next 6 seconds could be amazing,
Yes.
And if when you're not used to it, then you don't know. However, so I agree with you on that, and I think that's something that they're going to have to do something about, especially when you're trying to cater to I'll be honest, a European crowd, or even South American as well, where you're used to watching 2 hours of football. It is 2 hours long. We know how long it is, and it flows. That's the whole point, as in soccer. The flag argument, again, I agree with. I just don't think we've got much hope with that. If anything, I think it could possibly get worse, because there is such a big push. And I understand this when so much is, at stake. There's such a big push for fairness and equality on the field. You just need to look at whatchamacallit that happened between the Saints and the Rams a few years ago.
Yeah, pass interference.
The pass interference, no call, and then obviously the next year, was it the next year or the year after, they get the you can throw a flag for pass interference, and that failed, obviously, and they took that away. But more like that will happen. I think that you can even now throw a flag for, there's something else that they're introducing this next season as well that I can't quite remember. I don't think that's going to get any better. Now, is there a way to reduce the time it takes? Is there a way to reduce the equivalent of, what they always say about VAR in football, it's just taking too long or whatever, going to look at the screens? Then yeah, maybe. But there's going to be flags because they're very keen on it. NFL teams are keen on it because if you lose a game on a flag, you lose a lot of money. If you lose a lot of money, the owners aren't going to be very happy about that. And I can understand that. In regards to your first question, I'll try and keep this short. In regards to your first question about, how can we, try and increase awareness and popularity? I think awareness is a really big thing. And you're right. They have made, massive gains over the last few decades. But and I actually really liked what you said before, Darryl, about like, you want your talk sports, you want your Five Lives to be discussing it more regularly, and for them to, talk about it. Now, at the moment, they aren't going to be doing that because there isn't the awareness, right, between the casual sports fan. That's not to say there's not going to be in the future, but awareness is the real big thing. I actually have been saying to people before that you almost have to dislike the game before you like the game. But just by disliking it, you know it exists. Okay, so that is a big thing, I think, for the majority of the country. They just need to know that it exists, and that it can then maybe if they dislike it, they'll learn to like it. Does that make sense? So it's a lot to ask. A couple things, really quick things that you could do is make this is very unrealistic. I want to be clear when I say this. Make every game or a game every single week available on terrestrial TV. I just don't really think it's going to happen. You just need to look at rugby, cricket as well. I think rugby is the best example, actually, that when you weren't able to watch it on premium TV, on free TV, the popularity dwindled because people have to pay for it. Now, that said, I think Sky Sports and I think, DAZN, they do a good job. So that's not me criticising them. And it's like I said to Andy before. I'll finish my rant now. It's like I said to Andy before. It's about getting people to play the game and getting people to play the game at a young age. It is not a quick fix this time next year or this time in 3 years. But in 20 years or in 15 years, if you've got like every freaking kid playing it because it's in the curriculum, playing flag football, well, okay, you're interested in flag football. Would you want to watch? Why don't we watch the NFL? And suddenly people are getting into it. They're in year 6. By the time that they're, 18 years old, they're playing it. Or if they're not playing it, then they're following it. And suddenly you just got so many more people interested in it, And I think that's a real possibility if flag football is put into the curriculum. But it's not going to happen tomorrow.
One thing I will say as well is that I think one of the best ways to get an NFL fan is if you want them to get in it, without having the timeouts. Red Zone is a great way. For
I that's a really good point. Yeah,
and also it's actually free on TV. It's on Sky Sports Mix. So anyone who doesn't have Sky, you can still access Sky Sports Mix on Sundays, and they'll show NFL Red Zone. So I think that is a good way of doing it. And I kind of think as well maybe you shouldn't have just that because I think you need NFL fans to really appreciate the sort of the.
There's an entry point though, Andy, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole game. I think the NFL fans need the whole game on because they need to know how the game flows. I think Madden is a good way of doing it, but I think certainly in terms of a weekly product that's free on TV, and obviously you can get the highlights on YouTube. I think Red Zone is the next best thing because Red Zone is a great way of watching sport, even if you don't get the whole flow of the game going. I think that is certainly a way to get NFL fans in from the start.
Yeah, because that's one of the downfalls of it. That's almost like double-edged sword because people I know, they see the highlights and the highlights are fantastic. It looks amazing. They go, okay, and then watch a full game and it's slow, trickle the ball down the field, stop, start. And it used to frustrate me all the years when people used to, the biggest complaint, people never knew anything about the game. They always say, oh, it takes 3 hours. Well, so what? You watch cricket, that takes 5 days. Like, what? what's the 3 hours? Like, that is the game. And they always, oh, yeah, but it's stop, start. Like, every sport is pretty much stop, start. Golf, tennis, it's all, everything is stop, start. So what do you want? But it's those again, the adverts, the TV timeouts, when they're just straight away for no reason, just stopping it just to go for a TV timeouts. It's something that's an easy fix really for the NFL, because they could just have. I know that there's different laws over here to what they can, how many adverts they have. I think there's no limit to adverts they can do in America, so they just take as much money as they want. Fewer adverts, charge more for it. The company's going to pay for it. Of what they do in the Super Bowls and stuff like that. They will get that money back, but to have that game, especially the TV coverage, just flow quicker. And I'm sure players would want that as well. It just gets into that flow.
I think there's loads of different things that you can do, but I think, what will they do? What makes sense for them? What makes sense for them financially? Let's be honest. But it's something that in this country, it's frustrating, and I also get like excited and hopeful by it in the same way, because it makes me think, well, maybe if X, Y, and Z happened, then we can get to a point where it is more, you want to go down to the barbers and just have a chat with your barber, and he'll know what's going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, you do that with football. Like, you can just talk about what's going on in the Premier League, because they'll be across it probably.
Yeah.
But then it's the other things that you just don't really have that much control over, like what the NFL decides to do about the stop starts or the flags and all of that. So anyway, it's a good question.
Also on that, which kind of segues into it, is like one of the things which I really loved in certainly the early days of watching football is the parity. And the NFL's done tried so much to have parity. Like one year, you just don't know what you're going to do 1 year to the next. You could be picking within the first 5 picks of the draft, and then you could be a Super Bowl contender that very next year. Do you think the salary cap system, how it is now, is not working? It's not bringing parity, because we're seeing more and more. The way I see it, I could be wrong, but I'm seeing more and more teams sustaining success now, and more teams sustaining and being at the bottom, rather than having that 1 year to 1 year parity.
I mean, I will say that the cap is increasing. Sorry, Jay. The cap is increasing every year. But at the same time, it took us 20 years to get a back-to-back winner in the Chiefs. We had obviously the Chiefs are always there and thereabouts, but I think that's down to their drafting ability. That's down to who they're picking up for free agency. I think that everyone's got the same.
Down to quarterbacks now.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, how many first overall picks don't do well, and how many people who are picked in the later rounds or midway through the first rounds have better careers? And I think, for me, I think me personally, the NFL is great as it is right now. I wouldn't want to go back to a day where there's no salary cap, because that would be where you see the Cowboys win 3 and 4 years, you see the 49ers win 4 in 5 years, and I think it has taken us all that time to get a back-to-back winner. We've seen multiple teams win it, like the Rams, the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Eagles. It has been, we've seen the Bengals and Bills were terrible for many years, and then they draft well, they get Burrow, they get Josh Allen, and they're still winning now. Whereas a team does badly, but Jaguars, they go and get Trevor Lawrence and Trayvon Walker with the first overall picks, and they've not really improved much since then. So I think, for me, I think salary cap is not the reason why you're seeing winners win it again and again. I think it's more to do with these teams have the best GMs, the best scouting networks, the best staff, and the best coaching. And I think that's what wins some game. I think more than the salary cap. I think nothing's more defined by that than the best team in the league losing the best receiver in the league at the time in Tyreek Hill and winning 2 Super Bowls in the next 3 that followed. I think that goes down to smart business, smart plays, and I think all round. I think
I think it's almost come down to, in my opinion, like clever accounting, which is where these good GMs come. The manipulation of the cap, shall we say? Not necessarily that, but being more accounting and being more clever with it, rather than having the cap used for what it was intended for, which was, you're restricting how many top players you can have and restricting what you can build around. And it's become more of an accounting GM role.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think in the last few years as well, it's also been an interesting point in the salary cap where everything's just sort of exploded. And that comes down to, TV deals and, CBA and blah, 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 blah. but it is still better, I think. And I know, again, like, you know, I'm a Premier League fan and we don't have something like that in the Premier League. I still think it's better to have it than not to have it. Do I think it's perfect? No. Do I think it could be improved? Probably. But at the same time, I'm just pleased that there's a situation where we don't feel okay. Fine, there's going to be the similar teams are going to be there or thereabouts every single year, but that is because of good previous decisions, I think, rather than specifically because, you know, of a fault in the salary cap, for example.
Okay. So the other
thank you for your question, Darryl. We are running out of time now. Apologies to cut you short. We are ending the episode now. So
cheers, Darryl.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Right. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers. Bye.
Well, there we are. That is the end of the episode. I hope you guys all enjoyed this one today. I hope you enjoyed the phone in, and thank you to those who did call in and did send emails in with your questions and debates. We'll be sure to have an episode like this in the future where we will do more fan phone-ins. But in the meantime, Jay, thank you for coming on.
Andy, it is always a joy. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
No problem at all, mate. No problem at all. Looking forward to seeing you in a few months at the London games, and hopefully Dublin, hopefully Madrid, hopefully Berlin. Before we go, what's on the horizon for you? You've got a lot going on. You've done a lot of cool stuff recently. It's got, for a lot of people, the perfect life for a sports fan. What's there to come in the future for you?
It's a very good question, Andy. I don't know the answer to that right now. I think that the pleasure of having the off season is that it gives you a little bit of time to sort of figure stuff out, what you might want to do and what you might want to do in the future. I am planning on going to, I suspect you might be as well, Andy, planning on going to Dublin in August for the College Football Classic. I think that'll be fun. And it's just figuring out what do I want to do for next season. What do I want to do for next season, Andy? We'll do a phone in on that. But you can follow me. If you don't follow me already on TikTok, you can find me, Jay Lawrence. I do a lot of things at NFL there, and you can listen to Till Talk, the official podcast, Jacksonville Jaguars podcast for the UK and Ireland as well.
That's even more dramatic than mine is. Mine was yes, I won't be seeing you in Dublin for the college game. Cut a long story short, my girlfriend's parents bought us tickets to watch Coldplay in London, and I didn't realise it was coinciding with the college game, so I won't be there for that. But I'll hopefully be there for the NFL game between the Steelers and the Vikings. So that's the first international game, so hopefully that'll be a chance where many of our friends of the show, obviously like friend of the show Michael McQuaid and other friends of the show from the franchise tag, Ben Isaacs or you or anyone else who have given this podcast who do media, hopefully as many of us will be there as possible. But in the meantime, this is the end of this Across the Pod NFL podcast where AI decides what the team is. With your host, as ever, Andy Davis, our guest today, Jay Lawrence, and we'll see you guys for our next episode, which will be our top 10 worst ever winning Super Bowl head coaches of all time. We'll see you then.